Commercial real estate terminology. So one of the things that I do with Live Oak Capital is constant analyzing offers, get emails from brokers a couple times a day from all over the country like, hey, this is offered, here's this, here's that. And one of the most important terms to understand is NOI, net operating income. Because it's the income, right? Any acronym that has to do with income, I'm all about. So the way you calculate the net operating income is actually pretty simple. It's not super complicated. Take the operating expenses out of the gross revenue. So, start with the gross revenue. And I have some real numbers here. This offering, which is somewhere in Texas, it's actually hidden because, you have to sign an NDA to actually get all the details. But this is a property in Texas that this company sent me the other day. The gross income annually, $77,040 gross income. The operating expenses annually, $19,407. So on this sheet, the net income, the net operating income, $57,633. So with the sale price of $445, there in this offering, you have a return of 17.31% on your money. Amazing, right? Yeah, it's really good. But here's the thing. Even though that's how NOI works, that's not really how NOI works. I learned this the hard way with an investor who owned a bunch of duplexes here in the Charleston market. And as we were talking about refinancing an apartment complex that he's actually also an investor in, we came to the conclusion that he would refinance his 5 duplexes into a commercial loan, take out some cash, do some renovations, and do that. And we ran into a hiccup because on the residential side, oh, sounds like the news chopper is flying over. On the residential side, when you're getting an appraisal, it's just basically, kind of market value of the asset. But with a commercial appraisal, the way market value is calculated is different. Because market value is directly tied to the NOI. Here's what we found out with these residential houses. The appraiser could not use the actual expenses that we gave him for the properties. Even though the expense ratio was something like 30% for these duplexes, the appraiser had to use market standard percentages on the expenses. He could not appraise them with less than a 50% expense ratio. Obviously, that would significantly impact the net operating income, and the value was not as high as we first projected. That's the point I want to make here. A property that's generating $77,000 a year, while it might have in reality $19,500 of operating expenses, you can't use that number with a lender. No lender is going to take that number and say, oh, wow, yeah, this property's pretty cheap to maintain and operate. We will make a lot of money. That's not how they do it. Banks, when they're looking at properties, they look at it from the standpoint of, if we foreclose on this and we have to take the property back, what will it cost us to operate it? Operating a multifamily commercial asset is not super simple. Rent, maintenance, taxes, insurance, all sorts of things that you have to do. A sharp operator could realistically operate a property at, sub 40% in the expenses. If you're really sharp, running a real lean with a bunch of new stuff everywhere, so you'd have low maintenance. The bank is not going to be able to do that. They are going to underwrite it for themselves to operate it with a 50% expense ratio. So when you're analyzing property, yeah, these numbers look great. It's like, oh wow, expenses are super low. But if you were to move forward with this, you'd find out very quickly from your commercial broker or your local bank, they're not going to let you use such a small a percentage of expenses. So when you're analyzing a deal, simple way to do it, take the gross income, the annual gross income, divide it in half. That's going to be a pretty good number to use for what you can take to a bank as the net operating income.